Picture the absolute peak of the ancient Roman Empire. You imagine sprawling marble palaces, endless decadent banquets, and powerful patricians draped in the finest imported silk. These masters of the known world possessed unlimited access to the absolute best medicine, the cleanest spring water, and the highest quality food of their era. Therefore, you would naturally assume that they lived incredibly long, comfortable lives, while their impoverished, oppressed slaves died young from brutal labor and starvation. But the archaeological reality of ancient Rome reveals a deeply terrifying and completely paradoxical truth. Modern analysis of ancient skeletons proves beyond any doubt that the wealthiest elites were actually dying significantly earlier than their own poorest servants. The most powerful men and women in the empire suffered from agonizing chronic pain, experienced catastrophic mental breakdowns in their youth, and completely failed to produce healthy heirs. For decades, historians were entirely baffled by this dark demographic anomaly. They tried to blame endless political assassinations, complex palace intrigues, or hidden genetic diseases exclusive to the aristocracy. However, the true culprit was far more sinister and completely invisible. The Roman elite were not being slaughtered by the hidden daggers of their political rivals. They were being mercilessly exterminated by their own insatiable obsession with extreme luxury and sweet flavors. They inadvertently engineered the most devastating biological catastrophe in ancient history. To comprehend the mechanics of this massive, self-inflicted imperial suicide, we must first completely destroy one of the most famous modern historical myths. You have almost certainly heard the popular theory that the Romans were poisoned by their own advanced plumbing system because their water pipes were made of toxic lead. It sounds incredibly logical to our modern minds, but it is absolute scientific fiction. The reality of Roman engineering was that their aqueduct water flowed constantly and violently, never sitting stagnant inside the pipes for even a single second. Furthermore, the natural spring water in the region was incredibly hard, meaning it was heavily saturated with minerals. Therefore, the inner walls of the lead pipes were rapidly coated in a thick, impenetrable layer of calcium carbonate. This hardened mineral crust created a perfect, flawless protective barrier between the toxic metal and the drinking supply. The true, fatal threat to the empire was hiding somewhere entirely different. It was lurking right inside the greatest pride of Roman aristocratic culture, their legendary wine. Ancient wine was radically different from the refined, balanced beverages we consume today. It spoiled incredibly fast, rapidly turning into harsh, acidic vinegar with an overwhelmingly bitter taste. Therefore, the Romans desperately needed a powerful chemical preservative and a highly effective sweetener to make their prestigious drinks actually palatable. Since refined sugar did not exist, and pure honey was astronomically expensive and altered the intended flavor profile, Roman chefs invented a unique, deadly solution. The ingenious Roman culinary masters developed a specialized, heavily reduced grape syrup that they called sapa. They would take huge volumes of unfermented grape juice and slowly boil it over an open fire for many hours until it was drastically reduced into a thick, sweet paste. But the ultimate, deadly secret of this recipe did not lie in the grapes themselves. The catastrophe was entirely caused by the specific metal cookware they chose for the boiling process. If you attempt to boil acidic grape juice in a traditional copper or bronze cauldron, a rapid chemical reaction occurs that completely ruins the syrup, giving it a foul, bitter, and highly metallic taste. The Romans quickly identified this culinary problem. Therefore, to achieve the perfect flavor, their recipe books strictly demanded the use of incredibly heavy pots, forged from pure, unalloyed lead. And right here, within the bubbling heat of these heavy cauldrons, an absolutely catastrophic and invisible chemical reaction took place. The natural fruit acids from the boiling grapes aggressively attacked and dissolved the inner walls of the lead pots. This slow, continuous destruction of the metal forced the lead to bind chemically with the syrup, creating a brand new, highly toxic compound known as lead acetate. Modern chemists commonly refer to this deadly substance by a terrifyingly accurate nickname: sugar of lead. It possesses an intensely vibrant, clean, and overpoweringly sweet taste that dramatically enhances anything it touches. The Roman aristocracy was absolutely mesmerized by this miraculous culinary discovery. They genuinely believed they had found a flawless, divine recipe from the gods themselves. This dangerously sweet lead syrup became a massive cultural obsession across the entire empire. They began pouring it into absolutely everything they consumed, heavily sweetening their prestigious vintage wines, enriching their expensive meat sauces, and even mixing it into their daily drinking water. But there was one critical, horrifying flaw in their luxurious lifestyle. Lead acetate is one of the most devastating and destructive neurotoxins known to human science, and the Roman elite were voluntarily consuming it in astronomical, lethal doses every single day of their lives. Lead possesses an incredibly insidious biological trait. It cannot be easily expelled by the human body. Instead, it slowly and relentlessly accumulates over many years, deep inside your bones, your internal organs, and your delicate brain tissue. The first agonizing symptom was often a severe form of gout, an excruciating joint pain that left powerful senators screaming in the middle of the night. Then, the heavy metal launched a catastrophic assault on the human reproductive system. Wealthy Roman patrician women suffered from mass infertility, and the few aristocratic children who survived birth were heavily afflicted with severe physical and cognitive deformities. The elite classes were unknowingly sterilizing themselves in their pursuit of the ultimate sweet wine. But the absolute most terrifying damage was inflicted directly upon the human psyche. Chronic exposure to heavy metals triggers uncontrollable outbursts of primal aggression, crippling paranoia, and rapid, progressive dementia. Now, simply recall the darkest historical accounts of the most insane Roman emperors. Caligula infamously tried to appoint his own horse as a high-ranking political consul and ordered his imperial legions to violently attack the ocean waves. Nero ruthlessly murdered his own family members and allegedly played music while his capital city burned to ash. Modern toxicologists are almost entirely convinced that this legendary madness was not caused by inbreeding or natural psychiatric disorders. These were the classic, undeniable textbook symptoms of severe, end-stage lead acetate poisoning. The most powerful leaders on the planet were literally losing their humanity and transforming into aggressive, paranoid monsters simply because they could afford to drink the sweetest, most expensive wine in the empire. Meanwhile, their impoverished slaves and ordinary commoners remained perfectly healthy. The lower classes were far too poor to ever afford the expensive sapa syrup, so they drank cheap, bitter wine diluted with safe water. Therefore, the ruling class essentially poisoned its own collective mind, destroying the intellectual foundation of the empire from the top down. This forgotten history stands as a chilling warning about the hidden dangers of extreme luxury. The greatest civilization of the ancient world did not just fall to barbarian swords. It collapsed because its leaders were completely addicted to a deadly sweetness.